The Striga received a nerf a little while back, but I don't think it really affected the weapon all too much. All the nerf really did was remove the fire shock wave this thing sends out at long distances from damaging the initial target. But in my eyes, it doesn't really hold it back any. This thing is still powerful, nerf or no. All it takes is a little setup for it to realize its true power. Hint, you must stun your enemies. So I've included a multitude of different ways to stun in this build. We've got our charged melee, shockwave light spell, the whisper and the Striga itself can stun enemies, and the dynamo ring will stun them if it's fully charged, and the iron cross. That final electric explosion it does stuns monsters. I may have gone a little overboard with the means to stun, but you really want that. You want several options to stun enemies because the Striga's damage is underwhelming otherwise. The main way I get this done is with charged melee and the shockwave. Carry the extra melee charge bead on your rosary, and when your two melees are out and on that long cooldown, swap to the psycho pump and gun down a few weak monsters to get them back instantly. I've noticed too that the psycho pump can stun enemies once you've pumped enough damage into them with it, and it's very strong in its own right. But on this build, I mainly want to use it for gaining back our melee or for helping to take down bosses. But getting back our melee is the main reason I'm using it on this build. For the shockwave, make sure you've got the light spell charge bead equipped, and you can get a third shockwave from the extra light spell arcana from the Prophecy of Lightness, which isn't really all that hard to unlock, as I've had it pop up straight away on multiple runs. If not, there's always stuff like Fast Light Spell or Painful Recharge, which will refill all your spells every time you take damage. I really hope they never change that. That effect right there is OP, all on its own. But it doesn't need a nerf because you need to take damage for it to trigger, which balances it out. So yeah. Anyway, like I mentioned earlier, the Striga can stun enemies once you've shot them enough. But I want that damage up front, or else I'm not making the most out of this weapon. The Striga stun should be looked at as a backup way to stun enemies. Once they've waken up from a shockwave or a blast from the whisper or whatever, shoot them a couple more times and hopefully stun them again. That's if they're not already dead by then, which most enemies will be, except for those larger, more heavily armored targets. But yeah, you really want enemies stunned while you pelt them with Striga bolts, or else you're not doing it right. So really, I don't think having all these different means to stun is actually going overboard, because you really don't ever want to run out. What else can I say about the Striga? That electric explosion it dishes out on headshots is pretty powerful. Though it's kind of hard to land headshots consistently, at least for me, because of the arcing trajectory the bolts take. They also seem to have a weird hitbox, but all this is just a personal problem. I just need more practice. The fire blast in long distances is also pretty handy, giving us a way to ignite enemies and deal a little bit more damage. And I've included the blood of a banshee as another way to ignite enemies, instead of going for something like Eye of the Mad Woman. Since the banshee's blood triggers with overkill damage, you'll be seeing this go off a lot as you hit stun enemies for multiple hundreds of damage. And it adds another instance of fire damage to those long-range shots. So it synergizes pretty good here. If you're wondering why I chose the Iron Cross instead of the Cursed Bell for stuns, trust me. I've tested both, and the Iron Cross works better. It doesn't stun, but we've got a plethora of ways to stun fools here, so we don't need it. And the Cursed Bell doesn't stun major enemies anyway, nor does it deal damage, so I went without it. I could have gone with the Burning Stake here, but I like the Iron Cross for weapons that demand accuracy to both hold enemies in place and group them up. Besides that, the Iron Cross functions almost exactly like the Burning Stake, and we've got two other ways to ignite enemies here anyway. And it pairs up with the Striga's electric damage, so that's the reasoning behind my philosophy here. This is another one of those weapons where good arcanas will make a big difference. I got some footage of what an ideal arcana spread should look like to show you what I mean. Now, ideally, you will want the Shockwave Arcana, which functions exactly like Flashover, except for the air element, and Fire Rate Boost either in place of or in combination with Elemental Fire Rate to make this a perfect spread for the Striga. But otherwise, this is what you want to get. And finally, for the rosaries, because they are also important on this build, go with light spell charge for shockwave, dash stamina for the dynamo ring, demonic ammo for the whisper, melee charge so we can keep meleeing, and ammo preservation so we can fire more shots before having to reload. So the Striga is still very powerful. I don't think many people let the minor nerf it got keep them from bringing it along with them on missions. It just needs a good secondary to handle bosses. But I do enjoy the gameplay loop of this thing, where you're constantly stunning enemies, then pelting them to the walls with its heavy bolts. It offers a bit of a change than what we're used to, and it makes using this weapon very fun.